Welcome to Bloke's World, where we're driving race cars. We're at Alan Berg Racing Schools at the hallowed ground of Laguna Seca. It's the second day of their premier 2-day program. Yesterday was all about learning to drive the cars, but today is about getting fast. We're being coached by some of the best racing instructors on the planet, but the real question is, can their expert tuition improve our lap times in the Ford Falcon station wagon which we race back home? Well, you'll find out, as we'll also cross back to our race at the Nota Grand Prix at Lakeside Raceway in Brisbane. It's all coming up right after this. Day 2 at the school was a big day for us, not only because it was a full day of open lapping in these awesome Formula Renault race cars, but also because at the 6 a.m. track walk, we finally got to meet the man himself, the man with his name on the tin, Alan Berg. This legendary Canadian has raced almost everything on 4 wheels, touring cars, prototypes and Formula cars all the way up to Formula 1. But for everything he's done in his racing career, we reckon his greatest achievement is this school, because thanks to him, weekend hacks like us and you get to do this.
Our programs are geared for anyone that wants to drive a race car. You don't need to have any type of background in motorsport to come in and run with us. As long as you can drive a road car on a street, you could come drive one of our race cars. Yes, we do get drivers that are involved with motorsports. We had some today that come and they want to brush up their skills in a low pressure, low key environment, learn Laguna Seca, relearn the track, get some feedback from our excellent coaches. We get guys like that. We get youngsters that come through that want to take their first step into automobile racing out of karting, and we can help them get their racing license. But a large part are guys that just want to drive a real race car at Laguna Seca Raceway. When we first came here to Laguna Seca, we came to the track and it was a trial. We came here not really knowing what to expect. I'd operated my Formula Car school in Canada for 6 years. We operated at tracks in Arizona, Southern California, and then someone had suggested to me Laguna Seca might be a good place to try. So we came up and I booked the track. We ran some days as a trial and it sold out. I think that the reason that Laguna Seca is so attractive is that it's an iconic track that has history for the past 50 years. The interesting thing about it is they built the track over the existing terrain. There is essentially 2 ways to build racetracks. One is to take a racetrack, use the existing terrain, and build a beautiful racetrack around it. The other one is to take a piece of land, level it off, and then artificially build in the elevation changes, the camber in the racetrack, that sort of thing. Laguna Seca is an old style racetrack.
Just like our home track at Lakeside Park. But we'll get to that later. For now, let's rewind to our track walk with Alan Berg.
You got to remember to get the car slowed and back into the apex. For a less experienced driver, a driver trying to push too hard,
by doing the double apex, they can sometimes miss the second apex, which is the key to be going fast through here. It's obviously about carrying speed in, but more importantly, it's about exit speed out of the corner. And you want to make sure, in both cases, that you're getting right down to here, inside wheel here. And the rule is essentially, once you know you're getting to the apex, is when you can start to progressively get back to the throttle. It's not a stamp on the throttle, but it's a squeeze, progression, application of the throttle, knowing that you're getting to the apex. Now, the red curbs, I'm sure you all are familiar with that already. You don't touch the red curbs anywhere around the racetrack there. Hard on the cars can cause you to go off.
So it's great to actually meet Alan for the first time. It's great too because, you know, you've got Alan there telling you what gear you should be in, and everything that he's saying to you, you just got to take one gear off because you're not Alan Berg. Because he'll be saying, oh, this is the corner you're coming here in fourth. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I was coming through there in second, and then maybe after lunchtime I actually got into third. But once again, he's really good at the fact that he's done this for so long and at a professional level that he understands everything, and not only just everything about driving, but everything about this track. So, you know, and it'll just give you all these different reference points of where to be on the track. And he's a great public speaker too. You know, he basically puts everything back into a form that you will understand. Whereas a lot of people, when they're at this elite level of any sport, can actually talk to you. No, I wouldn't say patronisingly, but I'd say that you'll never be at the same level as what they're trying to explain to you. So the good thing about Alan Berg's racing school is he knows that this is a progressional thing. He knows that you'll be quicker on day 2 than you were on day 1.
Dead set. That is the bestest thing we've ever done on Blokes World. Do yourself a favour, jump on the web, alanbergsracingschools.com. Of all the things we've done, this is the one thing I'm telling you. Everyone has to do this. It's absolutely awesome. Anyway, we're going to commercial break. We'll see you real soon.
Welcome back to Blokes World, and we're into the second day of our 2-day course at Allenberg Racing Schools at Laguna Seca. If you saw last week's episode, you'll know that we were downright shocked how quickly they got us into the cars on day 1, and today was the same. After our track walk with Alan Berg himself, and a cup of coffee and a quick theory session with Tom, the lead instructor, we were being strapped into the cars once again.
Our main focus today is going to be on not necessarily how to drive the car, but how to drive the car well. How to get the most out of the contact patch of the tire, how to manipulate the car to your benefit. And so we're going to start to use data for that. And when we look at data, we're going to look more at your footwork and look more at smaller parts of your driving technique to find more of what produces lap time, as opposed to just, are you hitting the apex or not? As far as your focus for driving the car, you want to think just about the contact patch of the tire and how you're manipulating that.
But I trust you guys. You guys are cool. Don't tell the other group, but you're my favorite. Any questions? All right, let's fire them up.
You know, driving a track like Laguna Seca is something that cannot be duplicated in video games. It can't be duplicated in driving simulators, and I'm sure that you can attest to that. You've no doubt been on Laguna Seca countless times, but coming here, and the first time that you go up to the corkscrew and you're looking at sky, and then you're diving down and the car drops out from underneath you, it's just a thrilling experience. I think people come for that.
Well, it looks like we're going to be pretty lucky with the weather today. June's not the best time of the year to be here, but we've had a couple of sprinkles. I actually had some water drops on the helmet while I was out there, and I had no idea how it was going to affect the car and the track. Turned out it was basically no rain at all, so I slowed down for no reason. Things look like they might be clearing up a bit. Very different to yesterday. It was all bright and sunny. The sun was shining, birds are chirping, so it could get interesting on day 2.
There's a lot of value in sleeping on it, right? So if you can drive for a day, go sleep on it, you know, understand it a little bit better. Day 2, most of the time we see a lot less mistakes from the drivers that were here on day 1. There's a little bit more competency, a little bit more comfort behind the wheel. And it gets even better if you come into a 3-day school. Day 3 is even better.
The difference between day 1 first drive and day 2 first drive, day 1 it's kind of like, oh man, what have I got myself in for? Whereas day 2 it's like, I know how to go faster today. That whole night all we did was sit at the bar with our race suits on, telling each other where we could be faster, what we were doing wrong. So it's not like, you know, you just do the driving school in the day and then you switch off and come back. It's in your brain all night. Like, I remember just being like, it was like an alpine skier sitting in my bed in the hotel room going, learning the track. You know, I know Laguna Seca like off the back of my hand now, you know. So we went out and did our first couple of stints. And the good thing about this second day was that we bought something legally off Craigslist. We actually bought a cameraman for the day. So yeah, we had what number did we give him? Was he camera? Yeah, it was -9, you know. I've wasted some money in my life, but oh man. I mean, if I was getting married, maybe, not that I'd ever do that again, I'd probably get him to do the video. But if I was going to go out and race a car again, I'd probably get him to make sandwiches. So, you know, we met up with this guy who was going to be our cameraman for the day, and yeah, I do remember, I don't want to get off topic, but I do remember at the end of the second day when we're back in the hotel room and we're looking at his footage, camera 3 was so upset, going, oh man, and I was on the ground just losing it, saying, dude, I was in tears going, we need to make this part of the show, and I think I am doing that right now. But, you know, God bless him, he's a lovely gentleman. He drove all the way from somewhere down the road, 10 minutes, and, you know, he did his bit.
Well, if you're going to put your real camera guy into a race car instead of, you know, behind a camera, then this is gonna happen, isn't it? And I'd do it again, no regrets. Here comes Ado behind us. He's on his warm-up lap. After the break, he's gonna wind it right up. See you in a minute. Welcome back to Blokes World, where the awesome instructors at Alan Berg Racing Schools have been given a monumental challenge to turn a couple of inexperienced hacks like myself and Ado into competent race car drivers. So let's see how they did. We'll jump forward now to a couple of weeks after we got home from the USA, when we raced at the Nota Grand Prix at Lakeside Raceway in Queensland in the Blokes World Falcon. Viewers, if you didn't need convincing about going to the Alan Berg Racing School, this should convince you. Ado's come back in from his first stint. He's taken 6 seconds off his best lap time. He's spun it 3 times.
We're currently in second as well. We're in second. No, we are. That's not a lie to the camera, that's for true.
Holy, after 3 spins.
Yeah.
And yeah, as you can see, Ado was a bit too excited about his newfound speed, so he forgot that we were making a TV show and just kind of wandered off, which is becoming a bit of a theme on Blokes World. The thing is that after getting used to driving open-wheel race cars on slick tyres, coming back home to drive our car with 3 times the weight and about a quarter of the tyre contact patch, he was bound to have a few interesting moments. And here they are. Now, earlier in this series, you might have seen the loosest driver in our team, Brownie. Well, he did his absolute best to retain his title, but he had nothing on Ado that day. Still, Brownie absolutely punished the poor old Falconio, and then if that wasn't enough, well, Mick came along, and he's normally the most sensible driver on the team, and he usually manages to bring the car back in a better condition than how he left the pits. Alright, how'd you go? Best lap? 1 minute 10.5, Mick. But he got in on the act too.
And she was full on. I flicked her and she come back and
So by this stage, when Lakeside's curbs had taken more hits than Lemmy himself, and the Falcon's front left tyre was worn down to a loose formation of a few canvas threads, it was my turn to take the final stint of the 6-hour race. And first up, well, I had to serve Brownie's penalty in the pits. And it was there that we discovered we'd squandered our second place position that Ado had started us off with at the beginning of the day.
Yous have done 166 laps and the car in front of yous has done 188.
Wow. So as I got going, I found that the car had a bit of a vibration coming from the front left. It's been... And it just kept getting worse and worse, and after a while... Wow, viewers! I've popped the front right up the front left. I knew it was going to happen. Woo! The radio's going crazy. There's a clamp down. Oh man, what a rush. But no worries, they were kind enough to give me a tow straight back into the pits. And I've never felt more like a race car driver than when the guys jacked the car up to change the tyre while I was still strapped in. So new tyre back on, and I had a blinding few laps until, with about 15 minutes to go, started to run out of fuel. Yeah. So there you have it. Alan Berg certainly improved our driving skills, but our strategy?
How's a nice way to put it? Garbage.
We're just here in the pits. The boys are just going through some data. As you can see, all serious faces. But over here, I've got some great news, viewers. My divorce has just come through. Woo!
High five!
High five! Surfing without a leg rope, driving without a handbrake. Let's go to a commercial break. See you after this.
Welcome back to Bloke's World, and we're going to hear now from one of the many awesome instructors at Alan Berg Racing Schools. Of course, there's only a single seat in these race cars, so the school sends instructors or coaches out onto almost every corner of the track, so that when you bring it back to the pits, they are there to meet you with their feedback on how you can go faster.
We want to see that progression in each driver. Everyone's going to develop a little bit differently. So the idea is, are we seeing, and this really comes down to what racing is the footwork, because there's between braking and getting back to gas, and your hand movements, are they starting to work together? Because at first everything's a little robotic, and so we really look for that in each driver. And so on day 2, we're hoping that we start to see that flow where it starts to come together, and that's just about being smooth, how you release the brake, how do you get back on power. That's kind of the key. We're doing still open lapping, so that part is kind of repetitive. It's just open lapping, but what we're trying to do is see the drivers start to make that development through the day. And then if you see that you go back to the gas pedal like near the first apex, what that means is that you broke hard and stayed hard on the brakes too long. So it doesn't mean you broke too soon. That corner, when you come in, you want to brake hard, but you want to actually, you've got the speed to go past the first apex. Don't stay on the brake so long that you feel like, oh shoot, I've overslowed. We come up there, we brake hard, but then our job is to actually start to release the brake to let some of the speed keep carrying past the first apex, right? That's critical. Yeah, it's different than, like if you feel like, oh, I'm overslowing the car, a lot of times we brake later, then you're like, oh crap, and then you're gonna have to brake too hard. So brake where you're braking, but just start to right after you brake hard, start going, okay, I can release, to let some of the speed you already have carry past the first apex. Then we can go, because you were braking so hard, you're like, oh, now I've overslowed it. Oh, I got to get back to gas, and then you weren't done getting to the second apex. So keeping it simple, go ahead and brake where you're braking. I like how hard you're braking, but then we have to start to ease off that brake pedal too. We put our instructors in different corners for each session. Then we rotate to different corners too, because if I'm going to be in turn 2 and I give feedback to all the drivers from turn 2, we all see things just slightly differently. So then I'll go to turn, say, 5 or turn 6. And that way the drivers are starting to get different feedback from different instructors, just the way we even verbalize things. So we're getting to see different things from the drivers are getting feedback from each instructor, and I think that's the best way for the driver to be able to get different inputs and maybe pick up on this off that instructor and that instructor. So that's why we do that. We rotate, so all the drivers out there are getting a little different feedback from each corner from each instructor.
Going over the corkscrew, you're doing a big lift right here. You go to power, and then you come all the way out of the power as you crest the hill, and you go back in. That can destabilize the car.
So it was almost an eye-opening experience when I ended up finally racing Indy cars, because I took my racing school at Sonoma Raceway. Then I raced Formula Mazdas there, lots of Formula cars. So you end up with, as you guys are learning, your brake markers, your apexes, where you get back on the power, where you track out of the corners. So I end up racing the Indy cars there. Everything was the same. And I'm thinking, this is crazy because you're doing, twice the speed, right? But the car can stop twice as good. It's got bigger tires. So really, what I've taken away from that, and I do pass along to people like yourself that are out there and anybody that's learning, is that once you drive a car, and you can take these Formula Renaults out here, if you can learn to drive them 100% and learn to understand what the car is actually, it's talking to you, it's telling you the limits, how much can I corner, how much can I brake, what the feel is as it's starting to get to the limits of traction. You can drive anything.
Well, that's all we can fit in tonight's episode of Blokes World. I hope you enjoyed it. But right now, why don't you head over to our website to grab one of these awesome new packs, which will see you getting a Blokes World Flaming Wallet, a DVD sampler featuring all the action when we went to the Ambler Hill Climb in Belgium, as well as that, some action from the 24 Hours Lemons race. You'll also receive a packet of Jack's Black Label beef jerky, a stubby cooler, some stickers, a badge, and guess what? It all comes with free postage. We'll see you next week.